disposed of as queen. Chapter 2 is going to see how Esther becomes the queen. This story is one of God being able to see the ends. He sees a Holocaust coming for the Jews, and he begins orchestrating things to prevent that from happening. That's what this book is all about. He's done this before in history. Remember, he brought Joseph to a place of prominence in the nation of Egypt to spare all the Israelites then. Well, now God is doing it again, this time using a woman, using Esther. This message today is called The Advantage of Favor. And as I've read through these 18 verses I'm going to be teaching today, the word favor shows up 3 different times. And when it does, when I look at repeated words, I'm going, okay, there's something going on with that word. And I decided to build the case, if you will, around favor. And as we study this morning, think yourself, in terms of how people view you, are you viewed with favor? And we can learn some valuable lessons from Esther in this regard. This chapter starts out with the word later, and I want to camp on this word later for a little bit. I don't want to skip over it. This is later, after Vashti was disposed of. There was actually a 3-year period between this chapter and the second chapter. What happened in between? Remember, Xerxes had this 6-month campaign to rally his provinces to stage a campaign to go into Greece and wage war, overcome Greece, and then continue to move on in expanding his empire. Well, he went, just like his father, King Darius I went. His father was defeated. He was going to avenge his father's defeat. He went, and he was defeated. And just so that you know a little bit about this character, who Xerxes really is, because the man had no compassion, no mercy, no grace. He was a proud, boastful man. He had one of his royal officials, a guy named by the name of Pythias, came to him. And Pythias had 5 sons. And Pythias had a bad omen about going back to Greece to wage war. And so he pleaded with Xerxes. He says, I've got 5 sons. Can we keep the oldest one back? The other 4, that's fine, but I want at least one son that'll be my heir and be able to take care of me in old age. Xerxes, of the opinion that, by golly, nobody's going to tell him what to do, took this oldest son, had him cut in 2, and then put him on either side of the roadway leading out of the city where all the soldiers marched in between this person. I mean, this is this man. He's ruthless. He's powerful. He's egotistical. He goes there and he's defeated in the Battle of Thermopylae. A movie's been made out of it, a movie called 300. He comes back now, 3 years later, this word later. He comes back and he's licking his wounds. Now, he's got plenty of women. He's got a harem. He's got concubines. He can have a woman any day, any time, you know. He can have sex whenever he wants it, just be frank. But what he doesn't have anymore is a wife. He doesn't have anybody that can come alongside and understand him and comfort him and console him. And so his attendants see this and just going, you know, we got to figure out a way to get him a wife. We got to get a new queen. That's where chapter 2 opens up. Let's listen to this. Later, when King Xerxes' fury had subsided, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what he had decreed about her. Then the king's personal attendants proposed, let a search be made for beautiful young virgins for the king. Let the king appoint commissioners in every province of his realm to bring all these beautiful young women into the harem at the citadel of Susa. Let them be placed under the care of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who's in charge of the women, and let beauty treatments be given to them. Then let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. This advice appealed to the king, and he followed it. Now, you got to understand, these young personal attendants, really what they are, they're teenagers. They're young males. Their testosterone is flowing. They're saying, you need a new wife. And they said, here's the qualifications, young, beautiful, and virgin. Nothing about anything else. Nothing about wisdom, stature, demeanor, character, none of that. And it pleases his advice. And he takes that advice. What I want to do is, we gotta allow this to soak in, okay? I want to take us there, and let's enter into this ancient world. It's a really weird world. It is nothing like our day. Imagine the process of selecting a spouse being turned into a public contest where you bring in a group of attractive young women all together and they all vie for the affections of one single bachelor. They try to see who can please him the most, who can be the most charming, who can be the most pretty. They all get to know each other through this process, and they form likes and dislikes and rivalries, and one by one they drop out. Finally, one single girl remains, and the bachelor tells her that she's the one he wants to end up with. What a stupid way to pick a spouse. Aren't you grateful we live in a more enlightened age? Can you believe that once there was a culture where it would be like a mark of status for a man that he could land a younger woman of beauty and charm? She would be like a trophy wife. Can you believe that there was once a culture where a grown man would say, I have a hot wife, and believe it would be taken seriously as a reason why he should be allowed to lead the nation? Thank God we're not living in a culture like that. But they don't know that God is in control. God is always in control. Let me tell you about providence of God here. King Xerxes' agreement to seek a new queen is evidence of God's providence. God didn't force Xerxes to accept this plan. God did not approve of the king's harem and his sensual appetite and abuse of young women. Without being the author of sin, God directed decisions to accomplish his will. That's what providence does. That's what providence does. The king's Proverbs 21:1 says this, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. Like the rivers of water, he turns it wherever he wishes. A king, it's like molten wax. He just directs it wherever it's going to go. And he directed Xerxes to take this advice of this young group of teenagers. In the search for a queen, I want to make sure I understand this. This was not a beauty contest. This was not America's, American Idol. It wasn't The Voice. It wasn't a Miss Universe contest. This was where servants went out into all the provinces, 127 of them. Remember, they're looking for the young, beautiful virgin, these 13, 14, 15-year-old girls. And they were going to take one from every province, maybe more. So maybe there's hundreds of women. And these women were taken against their will. They did not sign up. So I want you to imagine being mom or being dad. You've got your beautiful 13-year-old daughter there. And one day these men come in and she's just taken. She may be screaming and kicking. You may be screaming and kicking. She is gone. It's a horrible, horrible situation. And not only that, but when you're conscribed to the harem of the king, once you go into the king and then you come out from the king, you go into his concubine, you only go back in if he calls for you. There's no guarantee he will ever call for you again. And if he doesn't, you remain for the rest of your life locked up, under guard. You will be a widow until the day you die. No way, Fred, no way. Where is that? I mean, is that in the Bible? It is. I'm glad you asked. This is in 2 Samuel chapter 20, verse 3. This talks about King David. When David returned to his palace in Jerusalem, he took the 10 concubines he had left to take care of the palace and put them in a house under guard. He provided for them, but had no sexual relations with them. They were kept in confinement till the day of their death, living as widows. Wow. Can you imagine? You're 13, 14 years old. You've been ripped out of your town. You've been ripped out of your city. You've been ripped away from your family. You're brought into this palace. You're looking around at all these beautiful young ladies, and you're thinking, what are the odds? My life is ruined. I mean, just a horrible, evil thing. And Xerxes had no qualm about this. That was his nature. He could give a rip. All he's after is he's got to get a new wife, and this sounds like a reasonable plan. It's a horrible thing, absolutely horrible, and the air of desperation it had to create. Now, let's go to verse 5 here. All I got to do is find it. Now, there was in the citadel of Susa a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin named Mordecai, son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, who had been carried into exile from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, among those taken captive with Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This young woman, who was also known as Esther, had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter when her father and mother died. So you see, this is cousin Mordecai. He's older. He raises her as his own daughter. She's beautiful. This would be a time when, if your beauty could be a major curse. In fact, sometimes it is for people. It can be a curse. Now, when the king's order and edict had been proclaimed, many young women were brought to the citadel of Susa and put under the care of Haggai. Esther was also taken. See that? She was taken. She didn't sign up. She didn't register. She didn't volunteer. She was taken to the king's palace and entrusted to Haggai, who had charge of the harem. She pleased him and won his favor. That's the first time favor shows up. Immediately, he provided her with beauty treatments and special food. He assigned to her 7 female attendants selected from the king's palace and moved her and her attendants into the best place in the harem. Esther had not revealed her nationality and family background because Mordecai had forbidden her to do so. Now, this was not a simple matter of, if anybody asks you, don't tell them you're Jewish. Because as a Jew, you were distinctly set apart. You were holy to the Lord. You had a different set of dietary laws. You would worship differently. There was prohibitions on what you could do on a Sabbath day. All of these things were different, and she hid not only her nationality, but everything about her nationality she hid. Why? Because Mordecai told her so. She's a Jew, though. What I find is interesting is, remember when Daniel was taken into captivity under Nebuchadnezzar, and he was given the royal food, just like she was. And Daniel said, no, I'm a Jew. I can't eat that food. That would be detestable in the sight of God. And now Esther has no qualm at all about doing that. But God uses both of them. God uses Daniel. God uses Esther. Why? That's a good question. Answer: because God is God, and he doesn't want us putting him in a box. God can do whatever God wants to do because God is all powerful. He knows way more than us. He sees what's coming, and he's going to work his will. That's why. Well, verse 11. Every day he walked back and forth near the courtyard of the harem to find out how Esther was and what was happening to her. Before a young woman's turn came to go into King Xerxes, she had to complete 12 months of beauty treatments prescribed for the women, 6 months with oil of myrrh and 6 months with perfumes and cosmetics. Ladies, how long do you take to get ready for a date? 5 minutes, okay. 15, maybe? Maybe an hour? Okay, maybe an hour. How many of you spend more time getting ready for the date than the date actually lasts? Can you imagine getting ready for a whole year for a date? Oh, man, but the stakes were high. You got to be chosen. If you get chosen, jackpot. You don't get chosen, your life is hell. And you see what's going on. So all of this treatment. As I was reading this and studying this, the thought occurred to me. The farther our nation goes away from God, the closer it gets to cosmetics. Strong statement, huh? I think there's some truth to this. Do you know the cosmetics industry in the United States is a $90 billion a year industry? $90 billion. Do you know that it impacts not only women, but men also? Do you know the fastest growing business on Amazon right now is male cosmetics? A poll done said that during a woman's lifetime, ages 18 to 78, a woman will spend $225,000 on her appearance. A man will spend $175,000 on his appearance. Beard oil. I resemble that comment, and you can keep quiet. Now get this, 1/4 of all spending is on the face. 1/4 of all that's on the face. People in their 30s spend more on facial moisturizer and anti-aging products than people in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. When you get my age, you just realize there ain't nothing going to make a difference. Get this, people in their 20s spend more on makeup than any other age group. And what this tells us is how we are engrossed with improving and maintaining our appearance. It's just the culture. Things aren't all that new. And can I just say this when it comes to cosmetics? Here's my advice, and I believe this comes from God. Use cosmetics to enhance your beauty, not replace your beauty. Amen. Got that? Amen. Use it to enhance your beauty. Now we're all gonna do it. We're all going to use something to look good, but don't use it to cover up. That's not the idea. The beauty should come from within, and that inner beauty, just accentuate it, just make it come out more. That's the right use. Listen to what Peter says in 1 Peter chapter 3. He says, your beauty should not come from an outward adornment, not the outside, such as elaborate hairstyles, the wearing of gold jewelry, or fine clothes. By the way, we got to make sure what it's not saying. These items are not prohibited. You can go get your hair done, that's fine. You can wear nice clothing, that's fine. You can wear gold jewelry, that's fine. No prohibition. The prohibition is, where's your source of beauty? Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in the sight of God. That's where beauty should come from. And I just felt like that is something, as our culture is, we need to hear a message like that. There's no prohibitions here, but just see yourself as God sees you. You're loved. God is crazy about you. God dreams about you. God knows everything about you. When God's thinking about you, he's got a big smile on his face. Going, that's my girl. That's my guy. We got to think the way God thinks of us, not the way the mirror thinks of us. People, this is 1 Samuel 16:7, people look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Wasn't it King Solomon who said, there's nothing new under the sun? We're reading a chapter here that's 2,600 years old. There is nothing new under the sun. Verse 13. And this is how she would go to the king. Anything she wanted was given her to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. In the evening, she would go there, and in the morning return to another part of the harem to the care of Shaashgaz, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She would not return to the king unless he was pleased with her and summoned her by name. Now, I want you to know, this was not a night where they sat up playing Scrabble all night. And pleasing him was not just a matter of letting him win. No, these girls were trained to satisfy his sensual and sexual appetite. And they're desperate, and they're going in, they're going to do whatever it's going to take. You know, and just what an ungodly environment that is. And that what was going on. It is absolutely degrading, absolutely disgusting is what it is. Now, we see when the turn came for Esther, the young woman Mordecai had adopted, the daughter of his uncle Abihail. By the way, there's a constant reminder, this is an orphan Jewish girl who becomes the queen of Persia. This is God doing that which only God can do. This is God doing the impossible. There's constant reminders. When it was her turn to go to the king, she asked for nothing. By the way, whatever you asked for, you could keep after you left the king. So in other words, if you grab this nice gold goblet, well, let me take that into the king, and then at least, if nothing else, I've got this gold goblet I can have for the rest of my life. Consolation prize. But she took nothing other than what Haggai, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the harem, suggested. And Esther won the favor. Second time it shows up, the favor of everyone who saw her. She was taken to King Xerxes in the royal residence in the 10th month, the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. Now the king was attracted to Esther more than to any of the other women, and she also won his favor and approval more than any of the other virgins. So he set a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. And the king gave a great banquet, Esther's banquet, for all his nobles and officials. He proclaimed a holiday throughout the provinces and distributed gifts with royal liberality. A second sign of the providence, King Xerxes' selection of Esther is evidence of God's providence. I'm sure there were girls just as beautiful as her, just as smart, just as intellectual, everything else, just as much a virgin as she was. She gets selected. Why? Because God's in this. God's hand is in this. And God allowed her, created in her, she had character and disposition such that she was a person, when she came into your company, she won your favor. So what is it about her that caused her to win the favor of others? That's what I want to look at. That's what I want to glean. I want to glean Esther's secret to favor. And I'll be honest with you. When I'm in a group of people or when I go around people, I want people's favor. I want people to look at me positively, not because God doesn't, but rather because I can then be able to fulfill whatever God has in store for me at the moment, at the time, to win the favor of people. So here's 6 things. First, she displayed grace-filled charm. And as I go through these, it's not for you to, there's no test later on, what were the 6 things? No, this is for you to listen and say, of all of these, where's an area I might be lacking? Where's an area that if God would, I would ask God to do that in me? Grace-filled charm. Verse 9 says, she pleased Haggai and won his favor. Literally, in the Hebrew, that phrase would be, she lifted up grace before his face. She lifted up grace before his face. She did not have sour grapes. She wasn't upset. She wasn't fighting this. She wasn't, did she want to be there? Probably not. But did she know God had her there for a reason? I think so. I think so. And so she was filled with grace. She wasn't like the other women going, this isn't fair. I don't want to be here. I want my mom. When am I going to let me go? You can't keep me here. I'm going to run away. I hate you. Or, hey, what can I do to get your favor? So if I got your favor, I'll get the king's favor, and try to bribe their way into a position. She wasn't like that. She was just different. She had grace-filled charm. Second thing, Esther knew how to keep a secret. She could keep a secret. There's something about women. She didn't reveal her nationality, but women already have an air of mystery about them. At least this is coming from a guy's perspective. Men are really predictable. Women already have an air of mystery around them. You get a woman that knows how to keep a secret, it's like, dang, what's going on? There's just that contributes to favor. I don't understand it. I don't know how. It just does, okay? A guy keeps a secret and you think he's weird. He's just like, ooh, there's something wrong with that guy. But she could keep a secret. By the way, can you keep a secret? Can you keep a secret? That's an important thing to do. Be able to keep a secret. There are things that I believe every one of us, when told, should just say, ooh, that is for me only. I'm going to take that to the grave. And in that regard, a lot of times, secret's not the best thing in the world to be told. I have some secrets about other people. They're going to the grave with me. Anyhow, do you have secrets? Third thing, she sustained a teachable spirit. She sustained a teachable spirit. She listened to and learned from Mordecai and Haggai. She actually said, okay, Dad, I know you're my older cousin, but she didn't treat him like, you're not my dad, you're not my mom, you're my older fuddy-dud cousin. Well, I'm not going to listen to you. And she didn't go to Haggai, well, who are you? I'm not going to listen to you. She didn't lean on her own charm, her own beauty. She didn't strut her stuff. She didn't remain isolated, independent. She says, what do you got to teach me? I think a person that gains the favor of others is one who is willing and open to be taught by others, whether they're much older or much younger, whether they're affluent or living in poverty. There's things we can learn from other people. Fourth, she exhibited authenticity. Imagine, let's just say 150 young, beautiful virgins. Imagine, just like when we watch The Bachelor, imagine all the backstabbing and the biting and the sarcasm and the hatred and all of that, surrounded by superficiality, selfishness, seduction, self-centeredness. She goes into the queen or the king and wins his favor. I think she goes in there, and I think for her, she's looking at this going, you know what? My ambition in life, I didn't grow up as a young girl to become the queen of Persia. That's not my ambition. God's got other things for me. And I'm going to go in there and I'm just going to be who I am. And if he likes it, good. If not, oh well. Whereas I think all the other girls are going, man, this is it. I've got to get this. This has got to work out this way. And she just goes in like that. She just was, hey, what you see, you got. You know, and there was just that authenticity around her. Number 5, she modeled a kind winsomeness. Esther won the favor of everyone who saw her. There was just something about her. Is it said of you, there's just something about him, or there's just something about her? It was true with Esther. There's just something about her. It was a winsomeness. Webster defines it as this. Winsomeness is being pleasant, delightful, attractive in a sweet, engaging way. By the way, women can be winsome, men can be winsome. It works both sides. I've never personally been accused of this. But would I like to be? Yeah. That just shows there's room to grow. But a winsomeness, she had it. A person who is winsome, guess what? They draw others unto themselves. They draw others unto themselves. Number 6, she had a humble respect for authority. She followed her parental authority even after she became queen. She could have said, wait a minute, Mordecai, I'm now married. I'm quote unquote an adult. I'm the queen. I got power and authority and all this other stuff. I'm not going to listen to you. No. She continued. She had a respect for authority. She had a respect for Haggai, an authority placed over her, one she did not choose, but she had that respect. All of these things come together to bring about character that when combined, she won the favor of others. Incidentally, if you are raising a young girl, this would be a fantastic study to go through and say, let's take a look at some women of the Bible who we can have before us as role models. Start with Vashti and her convictions. Go with Esther and just say, this is the kind of woman she was. You know, wouldn't you like to be a woman like her? By the way, I believe all girls need to hear they are beautiful. They are beautiful. Every girl should be growing up just knowing, I'm beautiful. Regardless of what the mirror tells her. My daughter, when she was little, I told her again and again and again and again. I never stopped telling her how beautiful she was. I still tell her. I have 3 granddaughters. I tell all of them how beautiful they are. Even my 20-month-old, she sits on my lap and I stroke her hair and I just tell her, you're beautiful. You're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. I want her to believe it and to know it, that beauty that is inside. That's inside. Girls should, and I think our culture forces girls to say, I'm ugly, I'm shameful, I'm not beautiful. I better do something on the outside to make up for it all. And you're falling into a lie. You're falling into a trap. Girls need to be told they're beautiful. Grandpa, tell those girls that you've got in your life they're beautiful. Dad, tell the girls they're beautiful. It could be a self-fulfilling prophecy is what I'm hoping it is. And I believe it is. That they're beautiful because God says they're beautiful. Okay? So, how do we wrap this up? Why are we studying this? What's going on? Here's where the rubber meets the road. My challenge is this, is become a modern-day Esther. Every one of us, let's become a modern-day Esther. How do we do that? 2 things. 1, ask God. Ask God. Say, God, could you cultivate character within me? Could you, and maybe review what Esther had and say, God, there's character she had that I don't have. God, would you make me more winsome? Or whatever it is. Or maybe if it's not on the Esther list, maybe it's in the fruit of the Spirit. Maybe you look at that and saying, wow, one who's filled with the Spirit should be full of love and joy and peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. God, I'm taking an inventory and I lack gentleness. God, could you make me a person of gentleness? You ask God for this. God delights in doing that. And then what we do is we ask God along with that, God, I'm discontent to be a regular old guy. I want to be extraordinary, God, because I know you and you live in me. I want something deeper spiritually than what I have now. God, would you give that to me? And then avail yourself to his strength and his wisdom. Ask God. When's the last time you've asked God for character improvement in your life? Now, I sent out an email to our pastoral leadership team, all of our pastors, and even Terry Buller, she sits on that. And I said, okay, Monday we meet. This is going to be optional, but I want to create an environment where you have the freedom to ask the others in that circle, do you see any character flaw in me? Because if you can't take your own inventory, maybe that somebody else sees something and they can point it out in you. You can be blind to it. And so I just thought, what a cool exercise that'll be. I don't know if everybody's going to do that or not. But what a great thing to get yourself out there, to get a little vulnerable and to say, people are seeing something about me that I don't see, that if I could have God work on that, that would be a big plus. That's a good thing. It's a good thing. Okay, second thing, become a modern day Esther. Trust God. Trust God. Trust God in your circumstances. Your circumstances might be the pits right now. And you're going, I'm not going to have character now. I'm angry and I'm sad and I'm frustrated and I'm mad and I'm depressed and I've got anxiety over all this and I've got all this junk. Don't make a bargain with God. Say, God, once my circumstances improve, then I'll be a person of character. Or, conversely, don't use your poor circumstances as an excuse. Well, God, if my circumstances were better, I sure could do a better job of keeping a secret. God, I sure could be winsome if all this other stuff was going on, but if that's the way I can't do that. Whatever. Trust God. God's fingerprints are on your life. He is watching over you. He knows what he's doing. He sees the end of what's coming. He sees it all, and he's using things in your life, even difficult things, to orchestrate all these events that his will might be accomplished. We just need to cooperate with it. That's the lesson of Esther the first part of chapter 2. Don't you love this story? I mean, I'm talking to myself, but don't you love this story? Yes, Fred, I do. Let me pray, and our worship team's going to come back up, okay? Father God, I want to thank you, Lord, for this study. I want to thank you for Esther and the character that we find there, and this young girl who could win favor in the crowd. And God, we would all like to be that. And Lord, it's not going to be a function of what we look at on the outside. It's going to be a function of what's on the inside. And God, that's the realm where you go to work. And God, there's so much phoniness in the world. There's so much pretense in the world. Help us to be authentic, to be real. God, to embrace fully how you feel about us, how you view us. God, help us to know the depth of your love. The depth and the width and the breadth, God. Thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name.